You won't believe what just happened on live TV. During a heated congressional hearing on immigration, Representative Jasmine Crockett tried to corner conservative commentator Brandon Gill with emotional arguments. But it didn't go as planned. Within minutes, the entire room fell silent as Gill calmly exposed what he called the political strategy behind open borders. No shouting, no chaos, just cold, undeniable logic that left Crockett frozen in her seat. What started as a routine debate turned into a viral moment that every network is now talking about. Was Gill being heartless, or was he simply saying what millions of Americans have been thinking all along? In this video, we break down the full exchange. Every question, every pause, and the one statement that changed the entire tone of the hearing. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And if you believe the truth still matters, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. A House hearing meant to discuss immigration turned into one of the most uncomfortable silences ever broadcast. Representative Jasmine Crockett tried to lecture the room about compassion, but within minutes, Brandon Gill exposed the double standard so clearly that even the moderator didn't know where to look. "Hey y'all, welcome to Pull It," the host begins. "Let's get right into what went down." The camera cuts to Crockett, already on a roll. "My colleagues across the aisle have decided that they are going to make immigrants the boogeyman," she says, leaning toward the microphone. "It's insanity to me. They talk about victims, which they should, but they have no compassion for people contributing to making this country great." The room is quiet except for the clicking of pens. She continues, confident. "I'm curious to know, Mr. Beer, if you know whether immigrants contributed to these particular crimes." Gill, sitting 2 seats away, folds his arms and listens. Crockett raises her voice slightly. "There was a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. The victims were African Americans shopping for groceries. Was the defendant an immigrant?" Mr. Beer glances at his notes. "No, he was a U.S.-born citizen." "Thank you so much," she says quickly. "Charleston, South Carolina, churchgoers killed while praising the Lord. Was that an immigrant?" "No, ma'am. Also U.S.-born." "Thank you again. Now, El Paso, Texas. Was that an immigrant?" Gill answers before Mr. Beer can. "No, they were targeting immigrants." "Exactly," she fires back. "In each of these cases, the attackers were white supremacists, not immigrants." Crockett smiles, thinking she's made her point. "The data show that white supremacists were behind over 80% of extremist-related murders in 2022, she concludes. "Without objection, I'd like to enter that into the record." The chairman nods. "Without objection." Then Brandon Gill leans forward. "Nothing excites me more than the thought of President Trump initiating the largest deportation operation in American history," he begins, voice calm, almost conversational, "because the purpose of our immigration system is for the benefit of American citizens, not foreigners or anybody else." A murmur moves across the room. "For 4 years," Gill continues, "Democrats have facilitated the invasion of over 10 million illegal aliens into our country. Open borders depress wages, strain health care, flood our communities with violence and drugs." Crockett interrupts. "That's not true." Gill cuts in, still measured. "The correct number of American citizens murdered or raped by illegal aliens is 0, right? That's what you want to believe? Because Americans have learned firsthand that importing the third world turns America into the third world." The room freezes. Even the moderator glances at him. The clock, unsure whether to intervene. Gill sets down his pen. "So tell me, Congresswoman," he says quietly, "if compassion is your argument, why ignore the chaos your policy creates?" Silence. Crockett leans forward again, trying to take back control. "Mr. Gill, I think what you're doing is dangerous. You're painting an entire group of people with a broad brush. You're talking about human beings, mothers, fathers, kids, people who come here for a better life." Gill doesn't flinch. "And what about the mothers and fathers who lost their kids to fentanyl overdoses from drugs crossing that same border?" She exhales sharply. "That's not fair. You can't connect every problem in America to immigration. You know that. I'm connecting policy to consequence, he replies. That's what this hearing is for. The audience murmurs. The moderator looks uneasy, but the exchange continues. Crockett raises her hand. You keep saying 10 million people as if they all arrived yesterday with bad intentions. These are families who contribute to our economy. They work, they pay taxes, they do the jobs no one else wants. Gill nods slightly. If they're paying taxes, then why are our schools overcrowded? Why are emergency rooms full? Why are blue-collar wages stagnant? She fires back. Because billionaires keep hoarding the money. Don't blame immigrants for that. He leans closer. You mean the billionaires funding sanctuary cities? Her expression tightens. Congresswoman, Gill continues, we've tried your compassion-based approach for 4 years. The result? Record crime in border towns, human trafficking, cartels richer than ever. Compassion without control isn't virtue, it's negligence. Crockett shakes her head. That's easy to say when you're not the one watching families torn apart. Families are being torn apart in Texas, too, Gill says, voice low. Ask the parents, whose kids died from drugs smuggled across that same border. Compassion means protecting your citizens first. The moderator interjects softly, let's maintain decorum. Crockett glances toward the chairman. I'm maintaining it, but what I won't maintain is silence when people demonize immigrants. Gill folds his hands. And I won't stay silent while you ignore the people you were elected to protect. A brief pause. The air feels heavy. Crockett tries one more angle. You keep talking about chaos, but immigrants aren't the reason this country has problems. It's systemic inequality. It's racism. It's greed. Gill answers calmly. And open borders make every one of those worse. You can't fix inequality while importing millions of new competitors for the same jobs. You can't fix greed by giving corporations cheap, illegal labor. And you can't fix racism by pretending chaos is compassion. The words land hard. Even Crockett hesitates, eyes narrowing as if searching for a counter that won't backfire. The moderator clears his throat. We'll move to closing remarks shortly. Gill glances her way. Take your time, Congresswoman. I don't want to rush the part where you explain how this helps Americans. The clock ticks. Crockett opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. The chairman nods for one final round before closing remarks. Crockett wastes no time. You talk about chaos, but what's really chaotic is trying to deport millions of people who've built their lives here. You think that makes America safer? You think that makes us stronger? Gill straightens his tie. It makes America fair. We have laws for a reason. You don't get to pick which ones feel compassionate this week. She frowns. Compassion isn't a weakness. It's what defines us. Then define it, he says quickly. Does compassion mean letting cartels decide who enters our country? Because that's what's happening right now. Crockett sighs. You're ignoring the fact that immigration has always been part of the American story. The Statue of Liberty doesn't say, give me your rich, give me your privileged. It says, give me your tired, your poor. And it doesn't say, ignore the law either, Gill replies. That statue welcomed those who came legally. It didn't say, swim across and we'll look the other way. A few people in the audience clap quietly before being hushed. Gill continues, voice firm but steady. Here's the truth nobody on your side wants to admit. This isn't just about kindness, it's about power. Every illegal immigrant counted in the census adds political weight to blue states. More people means more seats in Congress. More seats mean more control. That's the game. Crockett shakes her head. That's a conspiracy theory. It's math, he answers flatly. California alone gained an estimated 3 extra seats because of non-citizen counts. Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, each lost one. You tell me who benefits. She leans forward, tone sharpening. You think people risk their lives crossing deserts for some political scheme? They come here for safety. And politicians turn that desperation into votes, he says. You call it compassion. I call it conversion. The moderator raises a hand. Mr. Gill, please stay on topic. I am. he replies. The topic is immigration, and I'm explaining why the left wants it open. Crockett interjects, That's ridiculous. No, Congresswoman, Gill interrupts. What's ridiculous is pretending this chaos is an accident. It's engineered. Every border surge, every delayed deportation, every sanctuary city, it all leads to one thing: permanent political advantage. The words hang in the air. Even the moderator doesn't jump in this time. Crockett exhales sharply. So, your solution is what? Mass deportation? Family separation on live TV? You think that's leadership? He leans closer. Leadership is doing what's hard because it's right, not doing what's easy because it feels good. The room stays silent long enough for the camera clicks to be audible again. Gill finally adds, quieter but sharper, You can call that cold. I call it reality. Crockett flips through her notes, clearly irritated. You keep ignoring what I said earlier, Mr. Gill, she begins. You want to talk about chaos? Let's talk about real terror. Buffalo, Charleston, El Paso, those weren't immigrants committing those crimes. They were white supremacists, American citizens. So, where's your outrage for that? Gill nods slightly. Those tragedies broke every heart in this country, but you're using them as shields for a bad argument. Her eyebrows lift. Excuse me? You're comparing isolated acts of evil, he says, to a system-wide crisis that's affecting millions. White supremacists don't control our border. Cartels do. That's the difference. Crockett snaps back. Evil is evil, Mr. Gill. You don't get to pick which kind to condemn. I'm condemning all of it, he says firmly. The difference is that one can be stopped by enforcing law and the other can't. You can't legislate hatred out of someone's heart, but you can secure a border. The audience murmurs. A few nod. Crockett presses again. You just want to turn people's pain into talking points. These shootings prove that our biggest threat comes from within. Gill leans forward. And I'm saying, open borders make it worse. Every community strained by illegal immigration becomes more divided. The chaos doesn't heal wounds. It deepens them. She exhales loudly. You're twisting everything I say. He stays calm. I'm clarifying what you're leaving out. The question isn't whether evil exists. It's whether government policy is helping or stopping it. And right now, yours is helping it spread. The chairman shifts in his seat, sensing the exchange cutting deep. Crockett shakes her head. You sound like you're rooting against your own country. Gill answers quickly. No, I'm rooting for accountability. I want the same America that welcomed my grandparents. A country that values law, safety, and opportunity. What I don't want is an America where chaos is rebranded as compassion. That line lands hard. Cameras click. Crockett folds her arms. So, your solution is to build more walls and pretend the world stops at the border? He replies, My solution is to protect what's inside those walls. That's the job. Protection or exclusion? She fires back. He looks her in the eye. Both, because protection without exclusion is a fantasy. The moderator clears his throat but doesn't interrupt. The exchange has already gripped the room. Crockett sits back, jaw tight. You really think deporting people is going to solve America's problems? Gill's tone stays even. It's not about solving everything. It's about starting somewhere. And the start is enforcing the law we already have. She opens her mouth to respond but stops, realizing every counter would only draw more attention to the silence, forming around her. The moderator adjusts his glasses. Mr. Gill, you may proceed with your final remarks. Gill sits up straight, his tone measured. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make this very simple. He looks across the table toward Jasmine Crockett. The purpose of our immigration system, he says, is for the benefit of American citizens, not foreigners, not corporations, and not politicians. The words echo across the hearing room. Crockett lets out a short laugh. So, compassion's off the table, huh? That's what you're saying? No, he replies. I'm saying compassion starts at home. If you can't protect your own citizens, you don't get to pretend you care about anyone else's. She crosses her arms. You make it sound like immigrants are stealing something. They are, he says quietly. They're stealing opportunities from working-class Americans who can't compete with illegal labor. They're stealing resources from overrun hospitals, and they're stealing trust from the very communities that elected us to lead. The room stirs again. Crockett interrupts. So, you're blaming them for your party's economic failures? Come on. Nobody believes that. Gill doesn't raise his voice. I'm blaming leadership for letting it happen. And for 4 years, your leadership has treated border security like a moral crime. You're twisting this, she says sharply. Nobody's against security. We're against cruelty. Cruelty, he repeats. You think following the law is cruel? Try explaining to a single mother in Ohio why her paycheck's smaller because her employer hires off the books. Try telling a construction worker in Texas why his job disappeared when a contractor brought in 15 guys who'll work for half the wage. Crockett's lips tighten. That's not the fault of immigrants. That's greed. Then why defend the system that feeds it, he counters. Because it keeps certain politicians in power. The same ones who promise compassion while their voters lose everything that made them proud of this country. The moderator glances around. Even he seems unsure how to move forward. Gill continues, voice steady. America can't survive if the rule of law becomes optional. Immigration is supposed to strengthen the country, not stretch it until it breaks. What we have now isn't immigration. It's invasion dressed up as empathy. A few audible gasps ripple through the room. Crockett fires back. That's offensive. He meets her gaze. What's offensive is pretending everything's fine while families live in fear, schools overflow, and hospitals run out of space. The system is broken, and denial won't fix it. The moderator finally steps in. Let's stay respectful, please. Gill leans back, calm again. Respect is earned through honesty. That's what I'm doing. Crockett doesn't respond. She just looks away, jaw set, eyes unfocused, as if trying to find a line that can undo the damage he's just done. Crockett finally breaks her silence. You keep saying this is all political, but you haven't shown a single piece of evidence. You're just throwing accusations around. Gill turns toward her, expression steady. Evidence? Fine, let's talk about it. He lifts a document from his folder. Congressional seats are apportioned based on population, not citizenship. Every non-citizen counted adds representation to certain states, most of them blue. That's not my opinion. That's census law. Crockett shakes her head. So now you're blaming the census? That's absurd. No, he replies. I'm blaming the people exploiting it. When you count millions of illegal immigrants, California gets more seats in Congress while states like Ohio and West Virginia lose representation. That's math, not theory. She scoffs. You're exaggerating. He doesn't hesitate. Excluding non-citizens, California would have 3 fewer seats, and those seats matter when the House majority is 2 votes. The room goes quiet. The audience senses this isn't just opinion, it's numbers. Crockett tries to recover. You're twisting a humanitarian issue into a power struggle. Immigrants aren't pawns. No, he says, but politicians treat them that way. They're counted for power, paraded for votes, and then abandoned once the cameras are off. Crockett leans forward. That's a cruel thing to say. It's a true thing to say, he replies evenly. If Democrats really cared about immigrants, they'd fix the system, not weaponize it. The moderator glances up. Mr. Gill, please refrain from generalizing. Gill nods respectfully. Then I'll be specific. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer himself said, quote, "Our ultimate goal is a path to citizenship for all 11 million undocumented individuals." That's not compassion, that's strategy. Crockett raises an eyebrow. And what's wrong with giving people a chance to become citizens? Nothing, Gill says. If they come legally, everything, if you reward breaking the law. When you erase the line between legal and illegal, you erase the meaning of citizenship itself. A low hum fills the room as people whisper. He continues, "The political party that can't win hearts on ideas will try to win on numbers. That's what open borders achieve. Imported population equals imported power. Crockett shoots back. That's insulting to every immigrant who works hard and believes in this country. He meets her gaze. Then they should be the first to demand the law be enforced, because every illegal entry cheapens the value of the ones who did it right. The moderator taps his pen. We'll need to wrap soon. Gill nods slightly. Sure, but before we do, I'd love to hear the Congresswoman explain why enforcing the law is controversial, unless, of course, chaos is the goal. Crockett freezes for a second, eyes narrowing. You don't get to accuse me of wanting chaos. He leans back, calm as ever. Then stop defending it. The silence that follows lasts longer than anyone expects. The chairman signals that both sides can respond one final time before closing arguments. Crockett grabs her pen, tapping it against the desk. Mr. Gill, you're trying to make this sound like some elaborate plot, but representation in Congress is about people who live here, not about fear-mongering or math tricks. Gill leans forward slightly. It's about fairness. Every seat in Congress equals power. When states with millions of illegal immigrants get extra seats, states that follow the rules lose theirs. That's not representation. That's reward for chaos. Crockett frowns. You act like people are being imported like cargo. They're human beings. He nods. Yes, they are. And that's exactly why it's wrong to treat them as numbers for political leverage. The audience murmurs again. Crockett glances toward the cameras. You're missing the big picture. These communities contribute. They pay sales tax, they rent homes, they help the side economy. Gill doesn't blink. But they also change the math. Every 10,000 counted gives more money and political weight to the states that welcome illegal entry. That's the incentive, and it's why border enforcement keeps being delayed. She exhales loudly. You make it sound like we sit in meetings plotting how to move congressional seats around. Gill answers immediately. You don't have to. The system does it for you. When non-citizens are counted, blue states gain influence automatically. The incentive writes itself. She shakes her head. That's cynical. That's arithmetic, he says simply. You've built a machine that rewards breaking the law and punishes those who follow it. If that's compassion, it's the cruelest kind. The moderator clears his throat. Please keep your exchanges concise. Crockett turns toward him. Concise? Fine. Mr. Gill, answer me this. What happens when you deport millions of people who've lived here for years? You tear families apart. You tank industries. You ruin lives. Gill replies evenly, then maybe politicians should have thought of that before encouraging them to break the law in the first place. A low gasp ripples through the room. Crockett fires back. You're blaming Democrats for compassion. He shakes his head. No, I'm blaming Democrats for dependency. You need open borders to stay in power. It's not about kindness, it's about counting. She leans forward, voice rising. That's not true. Gill cuts her off. Then why do sanctuary cities keep getting federal funding while border towns drown in debt? Why do states enforcing immigration law get sued by the same government that swore to uphold it? The moderator looks uneasy but doesn't interrupt. Gill pauses, letting the silence stretch. Because this isn't neglect, it's design. Crockett goes still, pen motionless now. He finishes quietly. The chaos isn't an accident, it's the plan. No one speaks for several seconds. The cameras stay fixed on Crockett's face. The expression of someone who's just realized every counterargument now sounds like proof of his point. Gill takes a slow breath and glances at the moderator. If I may, I'd like to read something for the record. Crockett rolls her eyes. Here we go again. He holds up a printed sheet. This comes from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. His words, not mine. Quote, Our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million undocumented individuals living here. End quote. Crockett frowns. That's taken out of context. No, Congresswoman, Gill says evenly, that's the context. When the top Democrat in the Senate openly says the goal is citizenship for all undocumented individuals, that's not a slip of the tongue. That's policy. She leans forward, defensive. So, wanting people to become citizens is now evil? It's not evil, he answers. It's convenient. If millions of new voters appear overnight, it changes the entire political landscape. That's the real motivation behind all this compassion talk. The moderator glances toward Crockett as if waiting for her rebuttal. She doesn't move. Gill continues, voice measured. This isn't a humanitarian mission, it's electoral engineering. When states get more congressional seats for higher population counts, and then grant citizenship to the same people they counted, they lock in power for decades. A quiet rustle moves through the hearing room. Cameras click again. Crockett exhales sharply. You're assuming intent where there is none. You can't prove motive. He leans forward. Then explain why every policy for 4 years has pointed in that direction. From refusing to finish the wall, to suing states that enforce federal law, to flooding sanctuary, cities with federal aid. Every move makes illegal entry easier. Every consequence strengthens your side politically. At some point, the pattern becomes the proof. She shifts in her chair. That's your opinion. No, Gill replies. That's observation. The only thing that's missing is honesty about it. The moderator interjects quietly. Let's remain factual, please. Gill nods. Here's a fact. When non-citizens are counted in the census, they don't just alter district lines. They shift billions of dollars in federal funding. The states that welcome illegal entry get rewarded, while those that enforce the law get penalized. That's the incentive system this party built. Crockett opens her mouth but hesitates. You're twisting this into something it's not. Then tell the American people what it really is, he says firmly. If this isn't about power, then why defend policies that make your voters poorer, less safe, and less represented? Silence. Gill sets the paper down. Maybe because chaos is easier to manage than accountability. The moderator doesn't respond. Neither does Crockett. For the first time all hearing, the microphones pick up nothing but the quiet hum of the lights above. The moderator clears his throat softly, but it's too late. The silence has already taken over the room. Crockett stares straight ahead, lips pressed together. Her papers sit untouched. The usual quick comebacks aren't there this time. Gill sits calmly, hands folded on the desk. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't smile. He just waits. Finally, the moderator speaks. Congresswoman Crockett, would you like to respond? She blinks, almost as if she didn't hear the question. I think we're missing the humanity here, she says slowly. This whole conversation, it's been framed in a way that strips away the human side. Gill nods slightly. Then let's put it back. Let's talk about the American families living paycheck to paycheck, wondering why their neighborhoods aren't safe anymore. They're human, too. A murmur runs through the room. Crockett exhales sharply. You make it sound like compassion is a weakness. It's not, he replies. It's just not a policy. She looks down, flipping a page she doesn't read. You're simplifying something complex. I'm clarifying something deliberately complicated, he says. There's a difference. The audience quiets again. Even the reporters in the back have stopped typing. One of the committee members finally breaks the tension. Mr. Gill, are you suggesting this administration intentionally benefits from illegal immigration? Gill turns toward him. I'm saying the incentives make that outcome unavoidable. Whether it's intentional or not doesn't change the result. Power concentrates where chaos is allowed. The member nods slowly, jotting something down. Crockett interjects weakly. You can't just assume the worst of people. Gill answers without hesitation. I don't assume. I observe. And what I've seen is a border wide open, communities overwhelmed, and politicians still calling that compassion. That's not assuming the worst. That's watching it happen. The moderator leans in. Let's bring this back to solutions. Gill glances his way. The solution is easy to say, hard to do. Enforce the law equally, no exceptions. He pauses, then adds quietly, but equality under the law doesn't poll well, does it? The audience laughs softly, not out of humor, but recognition. Crockett shakes her head, visibly frustrated. "You're reducing everything to politics and numbers." He looks at her steadily. "Because politics and numbers built this mess. The human suffering came after." The line hangs in the air, heavy and final. The moderator clears his throat again. "We're running out of time for this segment." Gill nods politely. "Then let's end it on truth." The cameras pan across the table. Crockett staring down, Gill steady, the audience still processing what they've just heard. A few seconds later, the moderator's gavel hits the desk. "This session is adjourned." And that's when it happens. The silence breaks into a flurry of whispers, reporters rushing for the hallway, one phrase echoing across the room. She froze. The hearing room empties fast, but the moment doesn't fade. Cameras flash, reporters shout questions, and snippets of the exchange begin hitting social media before anyone reaches the exit. By evening, the headline trends everywhere. Crockett freezes after Gill's explosive immigration statement. Clips flood every platform. The pause, the silence, the stunned look on Crockett's face. Comment sections fill with arguments, praise, and disbelief. The phrase, "she froze," becomes a meme before midnight. Inside the studio, the host of Polite sits in front of the monitor. "Well, folks," he says with a grin, "that's one for the history books." The producer chuckles. "You can't script a moment like that." The host smirks. "Oh, you can. You just can't fake the truth." Cut to Brandon Gill later that night, sitting in a quiet hallway outside the Capitol. His phone vibrates non-stop with notifications, but he ignores them. A staffer hands him a printout, a transcript of the hearing already circulating online. He scans it briefly, then folds it once and puts it in his pocket. "It's not about me," he says softly. "It's about the message." A journalist approaches. "Mr. Gill, any comment on how quickly this has gone viral?" He pauses before answering. "Maybe people are just tired of pretending things make sense when they don't." The journalist nods. "Do you think your exchange changed any minds?" "I don't need to change minds," he replies. "I need people to see the pattern and decide for themselves if they're okay living with it." Later that night, Polite uploads the full segment to their channel. Within hours, it hits 1 million views. The comments section turns into a national conversation, some calling Gill heartless, others calling him the only one brave enough to say it out loud. One top comment reads, "He didn't shout, he didn't insult. He just said what everyone else was, too scared to." In the final moments of the video, the host closes the segment. Whether you agree or disagree, one thing's clear. When emotion meets logic, only one walks away standing. Then the screen fades to Gill's recorded message, his tone calm and deliberate. America is built on law, on fairness, on truth. If compassion becomes an excuse to ignore those things, it stops being compassion. It becomes control. Every nation has the right to protect what it loves, and I'll never apologize for defending that. The music swells softly as the outro rolls. Text flashes. Subscribe for more unfiltered truth. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what freedom means to you. The video ends on a single still frame. Brandon Gill, standing in the hearing corridor, tie loosened, eyes steady, while the world around him debates the words that left a nation silent.